Hello, and this is Jen Amaral Coons with Beyond the Mirror Counseling and Wellness. And I'm doing my little video of the day that I call Living Open. As you know, if you've heard any of my videos or audios, is that usually there's something that's resonated that I'm hearing a lot, people saying, or I'm reading and it's coming up. And right now, as a counselor, what I hear people struggling with a lot is just the different energies coming up with sustaining and managing and moving through this global pandemic and the quarantine, and recognizing that it looks different, and the amount of energy and the way that they move about the world just feels different, that they feel a little bit different and not normal. And so a lot of times I even hear people wanting to go back to normal, and I like to remind people there's no rewind button in this life. There is no back button. We can't go back to normal. We just get to move forward and move through to something new and create a new normal. And I believe that this time, my personal belief is that it's creating an invitation to really deepen our relationship with ourselves and others, and notice what we value and what's important to us, and really connecting. And sometimes the only way to know what's important is to by first be feeling what we don't like, and that gives us information. It's like, ew, I don't like that. Well, now that's one thing that I know I don't like, so I can move in a new direction. But when we're experiencing that ew or that I don't like that, that can be really hard to do. And it can be really hard when we feel in moments like strangers to ourselves. Like, this isn't normally the way I show up or normally the energy that I have. And so I invite you all to really create some compassion for yourself, to look at holding all of the feelings and all the energies that show up, and redefining a little bit what productivity means for you right now, what your values are right now, how you want to show up in the world with the emotions you have in this moment and with the energy that you have in this moment. Because in another moment, it's going to change. You'll have more or less energy, more or less inspiration, that changes throughout. And now that we're in this global pandemic space, that might look a little different than it did before. And the tendency can be to compare it like, well, the other way was more productive, or I felt happier, or I felt this or that, therefore that is better. And I really invite you to challenge that way of thinking as far as something is better or something is worse. And I like to use neutral terms like this is different, or maybe it's even more uncomfortable in some ways. Like, there are elements that can feel more uncomfortable, and there are elements that can feel really comfortable. And really looking at those things that you're grateful for maybe during this time, what you're enjoying about this time, what feels good and what you're not enjoying and what doesn't. And then that invitation is, how do you want to show up in this moment? What's the healthiest way you can show up in this moment? And is that in accordance to what you value? And so if you value like being helpful, if you value connecting with others, if you value being an inspiration, if you value showing up, for yourself, if you value your spirituality, if you value your family, if you value art and creativity, that you're looking at, how do I show up, in accordance to what I value, and make in the kindest way I can, and the most compassionate way I can. And if you're comparing that to how you did it last week or last month or last year, like, that wouldn't be kind or fair, because today we're doing it with the energy that we have. And the way that I'm moving about the world right now is different than the way I moved about when I was 8 years old or 28 years old, or the way that I will move about the world when I'm 80. And if I'm 80 and say, well, why aren't you moving about the world feeling like you did when you were 25 or 35 or 45, that wouldn't be fair. And so right now we have a different level of energy that is coming up, and we are learning, what do we do in this moment? And I feel like some people have been practicing that and they're really good at that, and other people really struggle, because when we're not in a global pandemic, there's a lot of really easy ways to distract ourselves, and there still are. You can find them pretty easily if you want. But before, we could just get what we want when we want it, and be with who we want when we want it, and everything was so easy and so quick and efficient and effective. And now there's some barriers between that, and some of the things that we were just getting before, like maybe those were great, and some of them maybe they weren't. Like, maybe we were just avoiding things or distracting from things. And so in this new space, sometimes I feel like we have to feel a little bit of an ouch, or a little bit of a grief, or a little bit of like I can't just just rush right out and get that thing I want or do that thing I want or avoid or connect. It's been a really hard day. You can't just go sit at the Rio and have dinner. You can't just go out to a concert with your friends. You have to do it a little bit differently. And if you can be compassionate while you're doing it differently, if you can be aware and create a space for that ouch, for that ew, for the whatever's coming up that feels uncomfortable, that will give you the information of what you need to do in this moment. And when we avoid that and say, this is stupid or dumb or lame that I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling, or why am I not remodeling my entire house and making 553 masks and doing things, like why am I exhausted by just homeschooling the children or moving day by day, then you're not being kind or fair. And we all have different kinds of energy and we all do different things. And when we are in accordance to what we value, we're going to feel the best. If I look at what you value and try and bring myself in alignment with that, I may not feel the best because it might not be what I value. And the same is true for you. And so we want to really stop and create a little bit of a special place or a sacred space or a comfortable pause or a safe space that we can really listen. What is it that I value, and how do I show up now with the world being a little bit different in alignment to what I value? And that's going to look different than when we're not in a pandemic. It may look a lot different. I think about, like, one thing that's really different for me is that I'm volunteering to bring meals to the elderly that can't get them in other ways, and I do that on Monday, and it sounds really good, like, yay, look at Jen doing that, yeah. And so don't compare to me, because I'm going to tell you why. So for me, it's an alignment to what I value. So when I am a counselor, I do a lot of volunteering for the business that I work for, Beyond the Mirror Counseling and Wellness. And we go into the schools and we talk about healthy body image or prevention from eating disorders or self-harm and how to treat yourself with respect. We talk about saying no. We talk about empowering women. We talk about many things for anxiety, depression, and just being healthy people and having healthy mental health. And we do that in our community in many different ways. We give information at health fairs. We show up at races and talk to athletes. We show up in the schools. We talk to teachers. We talk to PTA. We talk to other counselors. We do that in a lot of ways. And that part I'm not doing. Like, I can't do any of that. That's a big, huge piece of my life or my job that I'm not doing. And so it took me a while to notice. I didn't notice on the first week of the pandemic, like I didn't notice on the second week or maybe even the third week. But on the fourth week, when someone asked me if I would go pick up a meal, and I realized this is amazing and my children and I enjoyed it and it was like the best thing ever, then I realized, wow, I was really aching for that, and I maybe didn't even notice, like, this part where I'm giving back or helping others or forming connection. And even though I can't like go and shake hands with the older people and I'm just dropping it off on their front porch and ringing the bell or waving at them through a glass door, there's a moment of connection. Like, it's a win-win. I feel good because I'm doing something to help others who feel good because I'm doing something to help others. And they feel good because they have that moment of connection. And so volunteering is a win-win, and it's giving back to someone else. And so that, for me, is something that has shown up. I'm also planting things and growing things, which I like to do most of the time. However, I don't have time. And so I usually just have a teeny little garden, like berries and things that are easy to grow, like zucchini, squash, pumpkins, like easy to grow kinds of things. But this year I've added lots of other things and beginning to research about things that are more complicated to grow because I have a little bit of space to do that in. And I don't have that space that I feel like I can do that in an every day and every moment. But I do have that space to do that in now because I don't have to get up really early and take the kids to school and then go to work and then do this and that and 101 things before I even get to work, and all of that happens like starting at 6:30 in the morning. Now I can sleep until 8 if I want, which is noon for someone my age. And it feels like half the day. And I can really have this space where I move about the world more freely and more driven intuitively versus demand driven. And I have a schedule that I can set up differently doing teletherapy from home. And so it creates a lot of options that weren't there before. And so I have opportunities, and my normal is very different now than it was before. And when I go back to normal, whatever that is, I'm already feeling like I want to integrate some of these things into my life differently. That I really love not rushing around and not having to go from here to here to here to here to here all before 8 in the morning. And there are things that I think I will permanently want to change. And so that will be my new normal. And I know that because I've been paying attention to what is meaningful to me, which is being driven by my intuition, spending time with my children, helping others, being in nature. Like those are things that I'm really enjoying about this time, that I have more time for, and I can value in a whole nother level than I could value before when life felt busier. And so the invitation today is that you begin to create that gentle exploration in your day and in your life, that you allow yourself to feel uncomfortable in this wool sweater of a change, of this path between doorways, you know, of this space between normal. And you allow yourself to really see, what am I grateful for in this new way of being, and what do I miss from the old way, and what might that mean for me as I move forward, and you know, how do I want to show up as my best self in this space, in this moment? So that's all I got. So hopefully you're doing well, and I think about the world and all of you often, and enjoy the day and take good care. Thanks for listening, and feel free to like and share. Bye.